begin our debate. Our first candidate is Jeff Van Drew.
I thought it was, I picked number one. Okay.
You're right. I'm sorry. It would be Steve Fenichel.
Yes, not Jeff Van Drew. I'm running for Congress because I know that I can fairly and competently represent the needs of people.
I'm Seth Grossman. I'm the Republican nominee. And we all know that the Republican Party, like any political party, is not a group of insiders. It's thousands of people, and I'm proof of that. I was not the choice of the party leaders, but we had an open secret ballot primary. 24,000 people voted in that election in June. I got more votes than anyone else, and that's why I'm part of this Republican team. I also need money so I can defeat the major, I guess, that's the Jeff Van Drew, Steve Sweeney, Phil Murphy machine that is controlling New Jersey politics. But I reached out to thousands of people. More than 1,000 people gave money, $25, $100 to my campaign, so I could have TV ads and radio ads like any other major party candidate. I'm running to support President Trump to make his tax cuts, fair trade deals, and ending the Democrat war on American industry, so we have the good jobs and full employment that the entire country seems to be enjoying, except for here in New Jersey, where we have the Van Drew and Murphy Democrats running things with the high taxes, the high debt, and high regulations that put people out of business. I'm running against the Democrats, and anyone who listened to the freeholder debate knows all about the Democrats, because you heard the last words of Celestine Fernandez when she said, I want to divide people into groups. There's oppressors, there's victims, there's men against women, rich against poor, everybody fighting against other. What were her key words? We need anger. We need anger to fuel action. Those were her words. Democrats don't want to solve problems. They just want to divide people into groups, constantly angry at each other, blaming at each other. They're the party that would rather curse the darkness than light a candle like Republicans are trying to do with President Trump.
Next, Jeff Van Drew.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, and I want to thank the civic associations. There are so many things you want to say, it's almost hard to fit it into 2 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. A little bit about me for some folks that don't know me. I started out by just running for a councilperson seat. I worked hard, I met with people, Republicans and Democrats and independents, and we found common ground. And I moved forward. I eventually became mayor of my town, which is a town in Cape May County. And I eventually became freeholder and state assemblyman and senator. And during all those races, we sort of broke some records. I was the first state senator to ever get elected as a Democrat, and only, I think, the third freeholder since the Civil War as a Democrat. And the reason wasn't because I was a Democrat, and quite frankly, I don't even think it's anything that amazing that I did. It was bringing people together. That's what's so important. We are at a flashpoint of election, ladies and gentlemen. This is a time in our history where we can go forward as a great nation. And some people say we're going to make America great again. America is great, but we can become even greater. That's what we are here for. That's what we should be doing. And it isn't just one side or the other. I personally don't like the division. Yes, there are some differences between Republicans and Democrats, but there is more than we share, because we are all Americans, regardless of our race and our color and our creed and our political party. And it is time. Because when we look at the news at night or in the morning, it looks like sometimes a bad sitcom or really some bad reality television. That's not what we're about. We need a government of respect. We need a government that's going to move forward. We need a government that is going to work with all sides for a better and brighter future. Thank you.
It has to do with Medicare. What is your proposal for Medicare funding, and does it shift more cost onto the consumer? And the other question is also, are you for Medicare for all?
Well, of course, when someone says I'm for Medicare for all, they're for money being paid to various people, but where's the money going to come from? What we have to do in America is we have to grow up. Right now, we have a government that is spending $2.1 trillion a year. And it's taking in $2.1 trillion, it's spending $3 trillion a year, where 900 billion, I'm sorry, $2.1 billion, spending $900 billion a year more than it's taking in. Our total debt, the money we owe, is $21 trillion. I'm a lawyer, I handle bankruptcies a lot. And those billions and trillions of dollars don't make sense. But when you think about a family that is making $50,000 a year, if that family owes 10 times its income in credit cards, that family has $500,000 of credit card bills, but is making only $50,000 a year. Sooner or later, you're maxed out, you can't borrow anymore, and then the crash happens. I tell families that come in for bankruptcy counseling, I said, if you owe $500,000 in credit card bills and you're only making $50,000 a year, you could take a second job, you could eat peanut butter for the rest of your life, and you're not going to pay that debt. We have reached the limit of what we can afford to borrow. We owe something to our children and grandchildren. So before we talk about what we're entitled to, we have to say, where's the money going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? And I think of the president that got me into politics at 11 years old, John F. Kennedy. He said, we got to start ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And we have to reach that point again.
Between the United States government and our senior citizens that live in this country. I will not, let me be clear, I will not support any plan that cuts or hurts our senior citizens, that will take Social Security from them or diminish it, or diminish Medicare. It's about time that government can take care of it. You know, it's always curious to me that those who are the most vulnerable, the most in need, are the ones that are always punished when there's a financial problem. There are ways to do this. There are ways to scrub the budget. It shouldn't be the individuals who have had a commitment made to them. And I, for one, when I vote in Congress, am going to keep that commitment.
Mr. Fenichon? I didn't make you mad, did I?
You didn't have to throw it.
Your son's bike fell.
Just pick it back up.
I was going to ask you. Next, Mr. Grossman, 2 minutes.
Donald Trump is no stranger to us here in Atlantic City. He came to town, I guess, in the 1980s. I was on city council for 4 years dealing with him. Wasn't a perfect gentleman all the time. It wasn't the worst. The casino industry was tough. I had several businesses. As an attorney, I represented several businesses. The casinos were all slow pay. I remember you used to have a guy called Sonny Bagradouni, an old Armenian guy, had a motel called the Embassy Suites. And he went to a forum, well, what can we do to improve local business in Atlantic City? And his answer was, just force the casinos to pay all their bills within 30 days, and that'll be the biggest boon ever in Atlantic City. Of course, they didn't listen to him. But again, Donald Trump was no better, no worse than anyone else. But when you see the hatred, the demonization against him, when did all that change? When from just a rough, tough, outspoken, loud guy into this evil person? It began with the media. 95% of all media stories against him. We see the hatred. And when did the hatred begin? The minute he stopped writing checks to Democrats and decided to become a threat to Democratic power by running against Hillary Clinton. That's when it all changed. And so I think he's doing a great job. And we got to recognize fake news for what it is. And we all have to recognize that no matter what Jeff Van Drew will say now, oh, I want to get along with everyone, I'll close the aisle, I'll be with the problem solvers. The fact is, he is a Democrat, and if he's elected, and if the Democrats get just a one-vote majority of those 435 congressional members, he will caucus with the Democrats. And whoever they pick, Nancy Pelosi or anyone else, he'll pick them. Maxine Waters, all those radical Democrats will be committee chairmen. They will obstruct, deny, and impeach Trump and Kavanaugh, because that's what they're doing, that's what they pledged to do, and Andrew will be in the
Next up, Mr. John Rodilli, 2 minutes.
To be here. So, as I said before, this is a flashpoint election, and it is a nation that is somewhat divided. I believe that we should also look for leaders that can help to heal and bring us together and make us an even greater nation. And I hope to be one of those. I am going to work my hardest. I am going to do my best to make sure that you are always represented in a fair way. I've always done that my whole life in political life, worked to help people, real people, working people, day-to-day people, and I'm going to do that again. And I need your help to do it. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, we're all Americans. And as I said before, this is a great nation. It's an exceptional nation. And I believe in American exceptionalism. But we have to make sure that continues. And that exceptionalism was always a product of people working together for the greater good of the United States of America. I'm going to fight for our whole area. I'm going to work and fight for Atlantic County and Cape May County and Salem County, the entire district. Because that's what we need, somebody to represent us. It was said before, and it's true, 70-some cents go to the federal government from New Jersey, $1 goes to the federal government, and only 70-some cents go back to us. We need to do better than that. We need to ensure that we get better than that. We need to ensure that our children and grandchildren have the opportunities that we want them to have. And you know, I end up with this, and maybe it's a little bit corny, but I've done it, and I believe in it. I have my first grandson, and he calls me Bob. And I hope someday that when I do achieve the position of being congressman, and years later, that he can look back at me, at a picture, and say, you know what, that was my Bob, and he was a great person that really believed in the people of this district. I believe in all of you. I hope you'll believe in me.
Mr. Bedford, 2 minutes. Mr. Grossman, 1 minute.
All right, this is a difficult issue because remember, if you believe in collective bargaining rights, that means you take away individual rights. So you force people to join an organization in order to get a job. There are pluses and minuses on that, but when you have absolute power, you get absolute power corrupts. We now, I like to hear Democrats complain about the evil power of the big corporations when the fact is the most powerful political lobby in New Jersey, in fact, the most powerful political force in America is the NJEA, the New Jersey's Teachers Union, where every public school employee is forced to pay roughly $1,000 a year in dues to join 3 different unions. That comes out to $103 million a year for political purposes, and it outmatches every other political force in New Jersey.
Mr. Bedford, 1 minute. Mr. Vandrew, 1 minute.
I am a Second Amendment supporter, and I am a gun owner. I also believe in common sense. And one of the most important areas that we need to look at are universal background checks. Now, we have them in New Jersey, but there are areas of the country and instances in the country where they do not exist. Anybody who owns a gun And every gun owner that I know, and I know quite a few of them, believe the same, that they should go through a universal background check wherever you are in the country to ensure that it is safe for you to have a gun, number one. Secondly, there has been a breakdown in the system, and we need to do better with this. You know, in the incident in Florida, literally the individual who perpetrated this crime had been visited 50 times by the police, had been reported multiple times to the FBI. The school had said that they were afraid of him, and yet nothing was done. So we need a system that works better. Bump stocks should be illegal, and I voted to make them illegal. And finally, it is very important that when a doctor declares that you're a danger to yourself or someone else, that you shouldn't have a weapon.
Mr. Fenichel, 1 minute. Mr. Grossman, 1 minute.
Well, actually, what I would say, I actually went a little long at the beginning and said it, and I have nothing to add to what's already been said.
Let's go home.
On this issue.
Next question.
This question has to do with collective bargaining and the Janus decision. I'm not sure if a lot of people know the Janus decision, but I'm assuming it was a court decision that had to do with collective bargaining and workers' rights. And can you, we will direct this question to Mr. Bennifer.
Collective bargaining union is very important. We have to...
Mr. Van Drew, 1 minute.
It's a pretty simple one for me. I always have, I still do believe in collective bargaining, and I believe that those who work in any particular function have the right, if they so choose, to collective bargain and to unionize, period.
Mr. Fenichel, 1 minute.
Mr. Grossman, once again, a combining of a few questions. Second Amendment versus preventing guns from getting into the hands of crazies who kill children, go into movie theaters, go to marathons, go outside of casinos and concerts. How do you balance that? What solutions do you have?
Well, tragically, it seems most of the mass killings, not all, but most, seem to happen in, quote, gun-free zones. And in New Jersey, I think we're very vulnerable because we're a state that makes it almost impossible for private citizens, law-abiding citizens, citizens who could complete all the proficiency training and qualifications law enforcement officers. None of us are allowed to carry weapons with us. They have to either be at the gun range or they have to be at the home or locked up in the back of your car to be transported. And I think that makes people very vulnerable. I know that as a lawyer, I've often represented people who are being threatened by violent people, and I, as the attorney, got many threats. I've also gotten many threats just by being involved and active in politics. So I think it's important to allow more citizens to defend themselves. That's why I support the reciprocity that would allow concealed carry in New Jersey. And I also think we have to allow citizens from other states who are following the laws of their other states not to end up like Shameen Allen did from Pennsylvania, where she was perfectly licensed and paying a 3.5-year prison sentence. As far as preventing guns from being in the hands of crazy people, whenever you look at most of those shootings, it seems that there was a lot of law enforcement and healthcare professionals who, if they followed existing laws, could have prevented those tragedies. So before we have any new laws, I want to know why existing laws are not being followed. For example, that shooting in Texas, where somebody was barred from getting a firearm, but the Air Force under Obama never enforced that law because I think they wanted violence so they could justify grabbing everybody's gun for no reason.
Mr. Van Drew, 1 minute.
Education, technology, the workforce, they're connected together. So in order to compete globally and to compete within the United States, we need to make sure that our young people are trained in the jobs that are really out there. That includes the trades. It also includes technology. It also includes all the stem cell research type areas as well. Everything to do with STEM is very, very important. The bottom line is, in our area, because this is what the question was about, is, how can we make the economy better? We need to diversify, we need to support the FAA, we need to expand there, we need to make sure that the casinos are more of a player in what happens in Atlantic City and actually help to make Atlantic City better. More eds and meds, we need more medical facilities, again, and even in research in Atlantic City and Atlantic County, as well as education. Having the stocking facilities here is a wonderful thing. It's a lot more than that, but in a minute, that's about as much as you can get in.
And Mr. Fenichel, 1 minute.
By the way, I started as a Kennedy Democrat, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I had a hashtag walk away, and I think some others will go that hashtag walk away. But they have such faith in the Nobel Prize Committee because they said that the end of the world is coming. But wasn't that the same Nobel Prize Committee that gave the Peace Prize to President Obama after just 2 months in office, just before he started dropping bombs over all those people? But, that's the Nobel Prize Committee. I don't think they're any experts. But as far as the economy is concerned, what Donald Trump is doing, cutting the taxes so businesses can make profits by hiring new people, building new factories, getting fair trade with deals with other countries and ending the war on industry, that's making the economy so good. That's why so many of our kids from New Jersey are finding great jobs anywhere outside of New Jersey. The economy is great, except for here.
Mr. Benford, 1 minute.
Young people to have an economy where the best you could hope for is to make beds and serve meals 3 months a year. Maybe permanent industry will be better. I don't know.
What's needed to improve the U.S. economy?
Right.
This is a summary, I guess, of several of them. There are many individuals who are waiting online to become legal, to achieve legal immigration into the United States. What would you do to stop the inflow of illegal immigrants who are draining our financial resources?
And I'm going to answer that question real quick before we go to that, since it was brought up. I do believe in the Problem Solvers Caucus, and for those that don't understand what it is, it's a caucus of Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, and middle-of-the-road folks coming together, and it exists to really try to find real answers for the real problems we have. It doesn't say that it wants to find bad answers for the problems we have. Cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security, hurting people is not a good answer. Secondly, as far as the immigration issue, so we have multiple parts to this. One is the 11 million people that we guess that are here. We're not sure of the exact number, and the border security itself. I believe we do need border security. It doesn't necessarily have to be a brick wall, but we do need to have secure borders. The United States of America is a nation of the rule of law and should not have open borders. And at the same time, while we are maintaining that, we need to deal as adults and leaders with the 11 million folks or more that are here. And they need to go through the same process that our parents and grandparents, that some of us went through, where they learn about America, they take a test, and then they pledge to America, and they pledge the allegiance to the flag. And that way we deal with the folks that are here because they've been here for years, and they become tax-paying citizens who are working and functioning in this country and letting the sunshine in and ensuring that we don't have such a great problem in the future. Now, besides all of that, we need to rework our entire immigration system, whether it's work visas or whether it is for folks that just want to immigrate normally. We need a better, modern system that functions.
Mr. Fenichel, 1 minute.
Let me be clear again. So one of the candidates, I think it was Mr. Grossman, said that I give people money who vote for me. I do not. People vote for me because they believe in what I'm saying, and hopefully they will continue to do that. And secondly, we don't want to aim to hurt people. It doesn't mean we can give everybody everything they want all the time. Of course not. but it means that we should maintain the health, safety, and welfare of the people who live in this country. And it goes back to the same issue, because I guess we were saying I'm giving people everything they want. People made plans in their lives dependent upon Social Security and Medicare. That isn't giving them everything that they want. That's keeping your word as a nation.
Next question.
Can you hear? Okay. But Mr. Grossman, the question is, are there any Trump policies that you disagree with? We currently have 3 forms of government, and we want to know, is there anything that you disagree with Mr. Trump?
Well, obviously, Trump says a lot of things in ways I would not say them. But I guess I'm too busy looking what he's doing again to worry about what he's saying. And so I like the fact that he cut the taxes and got industry working again. I like the fact of the fair trade deals that are making Americans find jobs again, and better jobs. I like the fact that he's ended Obama's war against American industry by punishing productive factories and industries with these stupid fines because for minor regulations like that Gibson Guitar Company, because they didn't like because Obama didn't like the politics of that particular company. So I like that. I like the fact that he's no longer using the IRS to persecute people like conservative groups he disagrees with. I like the Trump good jobs. I like the Trump full employment. I like the fact that he's picked 2 Supreme Court judges who are going to be following the Constitution, because every elected official takes an oath to follow the Constitution, which is a written contract as to how government officials should do their duties. And instead of just making up rules as they go along, as existed with Democrats, we're now going back to the basic system of liberty that made America great. And by the way, why are all those people fleeing from violent and dictatorial countries? It's because those countries don't have our Constitution, don't have our system of liberty, don't have, in fact, many of them are socialist countries, and so many Democrats want to adopt the failed socialist policies of the Venezuelans, the Nicaraguas, and all those failed countries where their people are so desperate they give up anything to come here. So what policy? Forget about the fake news about stuff that they say Trump did that he didn't do. So forget about a flip comment or a tweet he might make, but look at the policy. I cannot think of any policy right now of Donald Trump that I disagree with. Thank you.
Mr. Bedford, 1 minute. Mr. Grossman, 1 minute.
Yeah, I find ironic that many of the things that bother people about Trump, when other politicians like Senator Menendez does stuff like that, doesn't seem to bother Democrats, only when Trump does things. But what I've heard here is, yeah, a lot of people may not like Trump's style, and that's not my personality, but when you talk about the things he's actually done, I did not hear anybody say really anything concrete that I disagree with. By the way, the climate's been changing for billions of years, and we all know, those of us who lived in Atlantic City during the 1938 hurricane, 1944 hurricane, 1962 storm, we all know that there's no difference in the intensity of storms now than back then, other than people building bigger houses closer to the shore, and that's why they're going down. I like the way Mr. Van Drew said he doesn't want to hurt people by just giving groups that vote for him more and more money, but we see how that turned out in New Jersey by doing things like costing $2.7 million to fix a 38-foot bridge between Mays Landing and Summers Point, all that extra money. What does that bring us? $16 billion deficit in our transportation fund, which means we get a gas tax hike every year in New Jersey. So whenever you try not to hurt some people, you're hurting other people, and we've got to be grown-ups and do what's best for most people most of the time. As far as immigration, we've got to build a wall now. We have these illegal immigrants, ones that come here. Mr. Fetishel said, oh, you got all these rights, they got lawyers, they got this and that. So the only way to stop illegal immigration at the beginning is to build a wall so people don't get here in the first place illegally.
It's the only way.
That Mr. Van Drew last night said, I want to join the Problem Solvers Caucus so we can really take these tough problems and figure out solutions. And now, one day later, here he's grandstanding saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, even though he knows that the system is going to run out of money unless you acknowledge that people in 1938 would collect Social Security at age 65 and the average person would die at age 68. Thank God we're living into our 80s, but we can't use a system based on the mortality of the 1930s. And we also have to recognize that before government made healthcare affordable, Americans could afford healthcare. That's when my dad charged $2 a filling on Pacific Avenue. And whenever somebody else is paying, it's amazing how the expense goes up.